Hello, and welcome to more chit chats about the Constellations Conference coming up, our 2015 North American Systemic Constellations Conference in November in San Diego. My name's Linda Como, and today I have two guests, JoAnne Chartrand Benz and Dyrian Benz Chartrand. And did I say that right? Because it came through on the email right.
Oh, that's good. Very good.
Okay, and their talk is November 13th, Friday, November 13th, 10:45 to 12:15, and the topic is Body Trauma and Relational Constellations, Assessing Strength to Heal the Love Trauma of Our Hearts. Welcome, Dyrian and JoAnne.
Thank you.
So, let's start off with, because you work together, tell me a little bit about your business.
Well, I think we both got into it through Bert Hellinger, actually, was our instigator. After we trained with him for a while and had him come over here, visit to the US, he asked us to start the first training, actually to our own surprise. And ever since then, we have been doing trainings, first every couple of months and now every month for some 15
years, for over 15 years, yeah.
So that's how it all started. And also I was teaching in psychology. I have a doctorate in psychology, so I was teaching and going to Germany a lot. And that's kind of how I got involved and exposed to all the constellation work that was going on over there. So we helped bringing it over here.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And I lived in Amsterdam for 17 years, so I had access to it then. And we sponsored Bert, brought him to America for several times to Santa Barbara, California, where we do our groups. And I, too, am a somatic psychology educator and therapist. And I've been in the field, we both have, of somatic psychology for about 40 years. And we bring in a lot of somatic psychology in our constellation work.
Mm-hmm. Super. I was just watching Dr. Levine this morning.
I'm actually a somatic experiencing practitioner. I have a...
Cool. Oh,
and
this is so cool.
Among others.
Okay, now I may have warned you. Everybody wants to know, how do you describe constellations at a cocktail party to a stranger? What would you guys say?
Well, I would say that the constellations are a way of putting out a visual field in your image right in front of you to be able to see what we normally just hold in our heads, both what's conscious and what's not conscious. And by seeing it out there and by placing it, it gives us a lot more options to actually affect our brain and the way we see it and hold it inside of us.
Cool.
And that we're working to stimulate, activate the mirror neurons in the brain and to support creating new neural pathways. And the additional piece that I often bring in is about how when we are we're using images to work with issues. And as we are presence, and step into the field, into the knowing field, the field of wisdom, the extended mind, the one mind, as Larry Dossey is calling it now. As we step into that and become totally, absolutely present, that time and space dissolves. And in that location, from that place where we're very embodied, sensing what's going on in our being, it's almost like a wormhole opens up where time and space collapse, dissolve, and we can have access to other locations and other times in space. So the representation that we're stepping into forms us, can inform us and allow the movement from inside to move outward. And that's where the body and doing it from an embodied place is very special and helpful.
Great. Thank you. So that leads us into your workshop coming up on Friday the 13th, Body Trauma and Relational Constellations, Assessing Strength to Heal the Love Trauma of Our Hearts. That should be a very popular one. Okay, tell us a little bit about your talk.
Well, we've been giving, because of our background, we have been educated and learning about trauma in many ways, psychologically, bodily, also spiritual aspects of it. So in the last couple of years, our training has focused on constellations and trauma. And we also noticed how much trauma affects the heart. Different kinds of trauma at different times in life really have an impact on our capacity for love, to give love, to receive love, to experience love. So that's when we started calling it love trauma. And since constellations really are about the flow of love, we felt that's been such an excellent combination for people. It's connected with the heart and love and with establishing connections again.
So we're actually looking at love trauma from an individual, personal perspective and a transgenerational, systemic perspective, and how love, of course, trauma is passed on through the generations, as the field of epigenetics is now also confirming. And we work also with the individual soul. We work with the family soul, and that's systemic trauma. And we also work with the individual soul and their own personal development.
I think that's actually, the point I'm just thinking not to forget is that one of the things we do with constellations is we track the client who is getting the constellation as well as the constellation itself, that there is no activation over either here or there. Mm-hmm. Do you want to?
We are working with both where the ego gets interrupted from our essential self and our authentic self. So we're working with these love traumas, attachment trauma, bonding trauma, and we use the body and the nervous system. We work with the nervous system. We see trauma, we define trauma as something that happened to us too many times, was traumatic, too much, too soon. The body's not able to digest it, repair it. And so the trauma, the residue of the trauma resides in our nervous system. So in the constellation work, we are also working with the nervous system. Sometimes we even set up the nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system regulates, digests, and metabolizes trauma. So we're combining that somatic component of it into our work. And that's what brings the quality of strength in the human being, and through cultivating more presence by bringing the nervous system more into balance.
And actually also that reminds me, in our trainings in particular, we spend a fair amount of time also training in awareness and presence, so that when someone enters the constellation work, and also for the representatives, it gives them much more capacity to be present in themselves, to follow the flow of what they're representing. So we use awareness meditations, things like that, but in a way that it is embodied, because constellations can only really happen if we're in our body, for the representatives particularly. So,
and we're keeping alive the theme of intimacy. We call our work relational constellations. We're looking at relationships with the body, with the nervous system, with presence. So we work a lot with cultivating presence. Relationship with our internal parts, our internal family system. We work a lot with the individual internal parts, the traumatized part, the healthy part, the survival parts.
Well, as well as the ancestral connections, and which we actually use a lot of times. We use ancestors as resources, because when you work in trauma, it is important, first of all, to establish a field of safety. So before we do anything, we have representatives of ancestors or other supporting forces before anything even starts.
Yes, we call in healthy ancestors, and we let them land in individual representatives and have the client use these as resources. So we're working with resources a lot to help regulate the nervous system. So as we're doing the constellation, we're also working with the individual client, tracking their activation. If a client is too activated, they'll dissociate, go numb, flood, and the constellation will not be metabolized. So we're working and it's great that because we're together, we can more easily do that.
Yeah, that's really a great, how one of us is really focused on the constellation. Another one can really pay attention to the client to make sure that person is breathing, is present, is in their body. And sometimes we even call for a mindful pause. We put everything on pause and then just work with the client for a little while to let that person settle down. And then it's like, we push the pause button again and things just continue. And that works wonderfully, actually. So.
And we bring in sounds. We also have a shamanic practitioner that we work with. We use some shamanic practices, and there's always a shamanic practitioner there to invite in ancestors. We do rituals for that.
Yeah, and like in a couple of weeks, we're going to Esalen for a week, and we do the constellation work for a week, and we usually have someone there to bring sound. And
a shamanic practitioner.
Also in releasing, sometimes it helps to release people in a little bit more elaborate way. If there has been the constellation has been particularly intense for somebody.
Huge gong that we bring in to help bring new movements in the constellation. And we introduce the sounds of the gong as the optimizing force of being, which is always here around us. And we give it the representation through the sound and ask clients to move it forward. We've seen this now, and let's see if we move forward in time, what wants to happen.
Yeah, and when we have the gong, which we don't always have, but then we use other musical support, like making the sound as an encouragement for the next movement that wants to happen.
Ow!
So we're working with love trauma, bonding trauma, attachment trauma, and most of our workshops are around the theme relationship, of course. That's why we call it relational constellations. And most of our workshops are connected to love and belonging.
It's all about that.
Esalen twice a year, 5-day workshops are all belonging and intimacy, or love and belonging and autonomy, love and belonging and attachment.
Well, the title of our first book is The Delight of Love and Belonging. And that's really puts it in a nutshell.
And you have a new book, don't you?
Yes, we're just about to finish. I have a pre-publication book on love trauma, and that's the book that we're going to bring to the constellation also.
Okay.
So we're thinking of perhaps getting a table, so we're just finishing this in time.
Excellent. I'm sure you'll sell a few.
That's our second book, and this one here on love and belonging, it's actually called The Delight of Love and Belonging.
Oh, that's great.
Our first book. And our workshops that we do monthly in Santa Barbara, they are a combination of training and learning program. We have an ongoing learning program that has a rotating schedule. It's 2 years long, and people can actually enter at any point in time if there's room, if there's space in the training. And we have also, because we've been doing the work for 15 years, we have a tribe. We have a tribe, a clan of people who also dip in and out, or outside new workshop participants. So the learning program has learned to have the flexibility to have drop-ins each weekend. And it's predominantly held by this learning program, trainees, participants. And it's actually become quite a good way to keep it alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's fantastic. I want to thank you two so much for joining me today. I know we had a few little scheduling glitches there. Good luck with your kitchen counter. And I really look forward to meeting you in person and perhaps picking up a couple of books. So I will I'll end here, but thank you very much. So their workshop, JoAnne Dyrian's workshop, is Friday, November 13th, 10:45 to 12:15. Thank you again.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Linda. You've
Thank
been
you.
great. And thank you for all your conference and for the field of constellations.
Thank you. All right, take care.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.